Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another episode on my Shock to the Past series. For those of you who don't know what this series consists of, they're movies from the 60s, 70s and 80s that shocked audiences back then and how they shape up by today's standards. So today we're going to be going to Canada in 1975 for a film directed by the legendary filmmaker David Cronenberg, and this movie is called Shivers. So Shivers on the outside is a very generic zombie/infected film. And ever since George A. Romero started this subgenre, a lot of movies have emulated it, therefore become very predictable. So on the outside, as far as a cover is concerned, Shivers is a very predictable film, but typical David Cronenberg fashion, he has made a movie that stands on its own 2 feet, which is something that is down to the fact that it's very psychologically damaging. And so this movie on the outside, it follows the story of a luxurious apartment complex that is being besieged by a parasite that turns people into sex-crazed maniacs. And so this is like the zombie sort of feeling, where a horde of these maniacs have lost all touch with their humanity and now inflicting as much pain and sexual violence upon the living. And so their group of survivors have to fight off the onslaught and make it out of the complex, and at the same time try and prevent the parasite from infecting the outside world. So for 1975, as far as a visual base is concerned, it's not as shocking as it was back then. But what makes Shivers so haunting was the fact that its psychology and the overall talking point is still relevant by today's standards. And the relevance is down to the sexuality that the movie uses. The sexuality and the fine line between love and lust, and basically love in a very romantic way and love in a very violent way. And the sexual violence this movie possesses actually begs the question, are we as human beings so different from these zombie-like people, these infected people who can't associate their victims with human beings? You hear about it in Hollywood in today's society. You've got Harvey Weinstein, you've got numerous other celebrities in Hollywood. You've also got celebrities in the sporting world that have been convicted of sexual assault. And so in this movie, it does possess that haunting quality and asking the question, are we so different from this horde that is inflicting all of this terror upon the living people? And so the movie does showcase sexuality in a very ugly way, which is something that does make a lot of people uncomfortable. When it comes to sexuality, we like to see it in a loving way. We love to see it in a fluffy, romantic way, but unfortunately there's an ugly side to it. And that disconnection that you can have to your victim and how devastating that can be. And I think that is something that is very symbolic in David Cronenberg's Shivers. And that's what makes it a movie that is, as I said, very generic in its plot formation, and the way that the movie transpires, I thought I could see, basically predict a long way from the end, and that's what ultimately prevents Shivers from being a good film. But I just still thought the underlying message is something that David Cronenberg has never lost. And for a debut feature film, I think it was very impressive because it makes a lot of mistakes, but David Cronenberg has fixed those mistakes in his other films. But what I loved about it was that he never loses what made him good in the first place. And basically all of his movies, on the outside you could say you've seen before, but on the inside you've got that underlying sort of presence that makes it a movie that casts its own shadow. And that's a showcase of a legendary director, and that's exactly what David Cronenberg is. This movie possesses the body horror that David Cronenberg is well known for. There are some very gory moments, there are some very shocking moments, but as I said, by today's standards, a little bit outdated. As far as violence is concerned, we're very desensitized to it. As far as sexual violence is concerned as well, we are desensitized to it. But what I thought made this movie very interesting was the fact that it is a commentary on today's society. And as I said, are we basically are we really that disconnected from the sex-crazed maniacs that are depicted in this movie? So that's the reason why I still think it will shock audiences by today's standards, because we will stop and think to ourselves, all right, well, this does happen in reality. And so it's not so far disconnected from real life, although you do have that sort of zombie parasite sort of aspect to the movie. But as I said, in typical David Cronenberg fashion, he has made it a lot more realistic than we would actually like. And so that's something that I think is very, very interesting. It's a fascinating film. I thought the overall continuity was very disjointed. There were moments that were brilliant, but there were also moments that really lagged. I thought some of the acting was so-so, and I thought some of the horror set pieces were very good, but there were other horror set pieces that I thought were a little bit a little bit lesser in quality as far as David Cronenberg is concerned. So the production of the whole thing, I thought that the apartment complex, yes, it was very claustrophobic, but it's something you've seen before in George A. Romero films, but it does cast its own shadow by using that strong sense of that sexuality and taking sexuality in a very negative way that makes it as haunting as it is. So it's far from David Cronenberg's best. If you are a fan of Cronenberg and you want to see where it all started, I would recommend it. You're not going to want to watch it more than once, as I said, for the generic quality that the movie possesses, but there is a talking point that makes it that gives it a purpose and makes it worth viewing as far as shocking cinema is concerned, because it will still pack a punch on an emotional level, but not so much on a visual level. Alright guys, that's it for my episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Till the next episode, keep watching movies and I'll see you later.